According to Cleveland.com's Chris Fedor, the Cleveland Cavaliers will meet with new head coach Kenny Atkinson after the Olympics to discuss possible roster additions, including players with ties to him from his days coaching the Nets, the Hawks, the Warriors. And now obviously they gotta do something, because we only have 12 roster spots currently filled without Isaac Okoro's situation resolved. Not including the addition of rookie Jalen Tyson, the Cavs haven't made a single roster addition via trade or free agency. Zip, zilch, nada. I wouldn't necessarily call this offseason a bust by any means, considering that Kobe Altman and company have managed to re-sign 3 of the Cavs core 4 to new extensions. That means something to me. Unfortunately, though, you got to do more than that to keep pace in an NBA that grows increasingly more and more talented. It's just the reality, man. And for what it's worth, I do believe in the philosophy of letting internal growth and player development take its place, especially under a head coach like Kenny Atkinson. I just also happen to believe that this roster remains incomplete. Emoni Bates remains unsigned, but it's heavily likely that he comes back on a 2-way contract. Luke Travers has officially split from Melbourne United and is apparently working with the Cavs to finalize some sort of agreement with him that works for both sides, according to Fedor as well. And I think that he will likely occupy another of the 2-way deals, but beyond those two and whoever gets that third 2-way spot, things are up in the air for the final couple of roster spots. We know the Cavs still lack a true third big, and yes, I know that Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen will likely rotate their minutes and be staggered so that each spends a decent amount of time with reserves, but one injury to either of those two, I mean, who are we kidding? We know who this team is, right? One injury to either of those two would place this team in a terrible spot. And I like Dean Wade, but he is not a center. Same goes for George Niang. He's also yet to truly show he can be trusted to be a healthy player deep into a playoff run or into a season for that matter. And the options on the market are less than inspiring in that regard. In terms of NBA free agents, there are only 2 real options as far as I'm concerned. The first is Bismack Biyombo, who spent parts of last season with both the Memphis Grizzlies and Oklahoma City Thunder, where he averaged a collective 4.4 points, 5.2 rebounds, 1.3 assists, and just under 1 block per game while completing 56.5% of his field goals. Biyombo doesn't offer much else other than rim protection and respectable rebounding at this point in his career. He has little touch, cannot space the floor like even a smidge, even a lick, and isn't versatile enough to truly play minutes at the 4 either. Tristan Thompson could return, I suppose, but even that isn't a given. It was a refreshing sight to see him back in wine and gold, even if it was a bit tainted by his 25-game suspension. He put up averages of 3.3 points and 3.6 rebounds while completing over 60.8% of his field goals during the 2023-24 season. He was essentially a non-factor in the playoffs, though, appearing in 10 games for just over 8.7 minutes per game. Beyond those two, it's truly a who's who of has-beens, rejects, and never worse, frankly. JaVale McGee, Moses Brown, Harry Giles, Omer Yurtseven, Cody Zeller, Boban Marjanovic, Orlando Robinson, who at 24 still might have some development left in him, are all available. And if the team wants to take a flyer on a player who may not be a center but can at the very least give you some minutes at the 5, they could entertain bringing in Thad Young, JT Thor, Oscar Tshiebwe. They could also bring back in-house options such as Pete Nance or Isaiah Mobley. Marcus Morris also looms large, as well as a potential signee, or should I say re-signee in this case. The international market isn't necessarily flush, but perhaps they're able to lure Matthias Lesort away from the Knicks by acquiring his rights, or maybe they entertain bringing in GUERSCHON YABUSELE, who has been a very, and I mean very important part of France's run to the gold medal game. He was phenomenal against Germany in an elimination game that saw him provide France with a team-high 17 points and 7 rebounds, and then again against Team USA, putting up 20 points and drawing 5 fouls in the process. YABUSELE averaged 14 points and 3.3 rebounds while knocking down over 51.9% of his field goals. And with Kenny Atkinson a part of the French coaching staff, maybe he elects to campaign for one of these guys to be brought back with him. My money is on YABUSELE. I really, and I mean really, like the idea of him in wine and gold. And listen, I get it. I suggested this a number of times on Twitter already, and I was immediately hit with the he's a dud or he's just not a fit in the modern NBA basketball game takes like that. And while there is sufficient enough evidence to suggest that his specific style of basketball may not fit NBA standards, I do have to believe that he's grown since his last stint in the league, which came with the ball Boston Celtics a number of years ago. Yabusele holds NBA career averages of just 2.3 points and 1.4 rebounds to go along with a field goal percentage of 44.2%, including 32.3% from three-point distance. That isn't inspiring at all, and for a 3-4, that three ball is always going to be a defining factor in how effective one can be, but I do like his size, his tenacity, and his ability to both defend and willingly accept the task of taking on 3-5s. He'd be worth a flyer in my opinion. Overall, none of these guys would be a lock for the rotation, but at this point we need depth, mostly playable depth, and it's possible that someone among this group experiences a career resurgence or provides just enough to justify receiving spot minutes, but who am I kidding? They're all shots in the dark at this point. Time will tell what Kenny and the Cavs decide to do, but all I know is they better figure it out soon. Go Cavs.